Hi, I'm Victor Corsino. I'm the COO of LogSync, and this is the closeout presentation of the win-win expansion in Latam proposal. This proposal was submitted in Catalyst in Fund 7 in the Grow Latin America Grow Cardano Challenge. This is the link to the original proposal in ID scale. The link is also going to be added to the description of this video on YouTube. And the goal of this proposal originally was to outreach to universities, legal bodies, and local governments in Latam to expand and localize win-win mediation services. And the total budget of the proposal was $15,000. So to start with, just going to reference some of the people and institutions that we reached out during this research. So during this time, we managed to reach out to more than 15 professionals of the alternative dispute resolution industry, including mediators, arbitrators, lawyers, legal prosecutors, researchers, and ADR instructors. Besides, we also reached out to 5 institutions, which were the Mediation and Arbitration Chamber in the state of Alagoas, the University of São Paulo State Court in Rio Grande do Sul, the criminal branch of the state court in Bahia, and Falcone, which is the largest national consulting company, plus many books, articles, research papers, and theses. And for this research, we covered 6 different states in 3 different regions of Brazil. And this was, in our opinion, very necessary because one of the things that we found out about ADR in Brazil is that it is very different in depending on which state you are. And also we decided to focus mainly in Brazil because it was going to be very, very difficult to do the same thing for all different countries because of the differences in culture and law. So we decided to focus in Brazil because this is the country in South America where we know more people in comparison to the other ones. And I'm based here as well, and it is approximately half of the population of South America. So the original goal of the proposal, as I mentioned, was to understand the cultural nuances in the market of mediation in Brazil and to onboard mediators in organizations. And the expected duration was 3 months between March to May 2022. But then we realized that it wouldn't make sense to just limit this research to mediation because of the findings that we had during the research. So we decided to extend the goal and understand the complete industry of alternative dispute resolution in Brazil, and also to identify the best go-to-market strategies according to the local culture, laws, and market characteristics. And the actual duration was 9 months from March to November 2022, because we realized we had to do much more research, talk to more people in different states, as I mentioned, to really understand how the ADR market in the industry are in Brazil. So sharing some of the results of the research, the first thing is that we found out that the ADR industry started in the late 90s, mainly inspired by the US and Portugal. And in comparison to the US, some people in the industry say that the ADR market here is similar to how the ADR market in the US was like 20 years ago. And it's almost always like that. So we are late, approximately 20 years in regarding to law, to culture and adoption of ADR methods as well. And at first there was some misconceptions about ADR in Brazil, which led to a bad reputation in the early 2000s. Many people claimed that they were mediators and arbitrators and they were selling courses, but at the end, the person was not prepared to be a proper mediator or arbitrator. And this led to a bad reputation of the industry as a whole. And there was this first law that was created in the late 90s, as I mentioned, and not much was done for a few years. And then approximately 10 years after that, mediator and arbitrator chambers were created in all 26 states of the country. And so far, arbitration is more widely used in Brazil by businesses, not by people, especially due to speed. And often it is included in B2B contracts as a first option between two different companies. And regarding mediation, most mediators in Brazil are not exclusively mediators, but they do this as a way to generate extra income, and they do not have a regular schedule of mediation. And this is mainly because mediation is not so common in Brazil yet. So it's very difficult for them to make enough money to sustain themselves and their families just through mediation. So it's very, very rare to have a mediator that works full time with mediation. And differently from the US, mediators don't market themselves here in Brazil, and they only get new clients by recommendation, someone they know, or through the arbitration and mediation chambers. This is very different because many people here prefer not to let others know that they are going through a mediation process or arbitration process for many different reasons. And in the US, it's not like that. Mediators have a profile in social media, and they usually market themselves for different industries and different specialties as well. And this is not how it works here. And until now, although the ADR chambers exist for more than 15 years, these methods are still not very popular in the country. There is this culture which we believe that's not limited to Brazil, but to other Latin countries as well, that people actually prefer to fight in court against the other party, and they try not to mediate or conciliate or find an amicable solution that's good for everyone. And with this, we found that it would be very limiting to us to try to adapt exactly what we are doing in the US with mediation as a B2C platform for any party that are seeking mediation. Probably this wouldn't be the best thing to do in Brazil because of this limitation in mediation culture here. But one of the most important things that we found out during the research was that in 2015, the National Civil Procedure Code was updated. And now, since then, it enforces every civil case to try some kind of EDR method before continuing with litigation, unless both parties refuse it. And this is something that was enforced by law now 8 years ago, almost 8 years ago, but it's not so well accepted by lawyers, by parties, although judges already see the value that it provides to decreasing the demand of litigation and making processes, finding their solutions faster and sometimes, most times actually cheaper when they accept trying at least mediation or conciliation first. And after the update of the Civil Procedure Code, every state created an instance of an entity called Sejusc, which is basically a chamber to connect parties of any civil case with conciliators and mediators that can try to solve their dispute before proceeding with the litigation itself. And as I mentioned, every state has its own entity, its own Sejusc, better say, and they are very heterogeneous across the country. And some of them are relatively efficient, while others are very, very inefficient. It is completely different, but most of them, if not in all of them, at least the ones that we did our research, all of them, they have to the conciliators and mediators have to go through a course. It is a 120 hours course, which comprises 60 hours of theory and 60 hours of practice to be able to work with it. So what happens is that since it's mandatory, it's a mandatory process, the state has to pay for the conciliation or mediation. And some people prefer to do it voluntarily, but they could accept payment by the state if they wanted to. And also something that happened very recently was that after the pandemic, almost all conciliations and mediations um, are done through the CJUSCs are online. And in some places where the process is less efficient, it might take many months or even more than 1 year to have a conciliation mediation session. And sometimes the conciliator or mediator is not well prepared, or it's not a professional of the ADR industry. Talking to some people, we've heard that in some cases, the courts even offer their interns that are not necessarily conciliators or mediators to do the process, the conciliation or mediation process itself, which is not ideal, and it happens. So we realized that there are many opportunities in some states for us to create partnerships with courts, with the CJUSC, to offer our platform and to facilitate the connection between these mediators and conciliators to the civil cases for parties that want to try a ADR method before proceeding with litigation. So summarizing the main findings, in general, ADR in Brazil is relatively new. It was created, not created, but it started to be used like 25 years ago. And mediation culture in Brazil is still immature. It's something that's still evolving. Arbitration is more widely used in B2B cases due to its increased speed and lower costs compared to litigation. And conciliation is the main ADR method used in Brazil currently, especially due to the update in the Civil Procedure Code in 2015. And there are still many inefficiencies in ensuring that all civil cases in Brazil have access to timely and professional conciliation and mediation. So based on these results, what we decided to do was to pivot our strategy for Brazil. Our original strategy was to basically translate mediators.ai to Portuguese, which was already done, and then onboard mediators in ADR organizations. But based on the results, what we decided to do was to pivot the strategy. And since we have identified that some states are very inefficient in applying the new updated Civil Procedure Code, what we decided to do was to talk to them to see exactly what they need and to try to develop a new business model and a new product that fits their needs, and adjust mediators.ai adapted to be used in conciliation and mediation for these cases where it is mandatory for them to try ADR first. Sorry. So besides this, I've also participated in a podcast by Bankless Brazil, which was about law and technology, and there we discussed what we are building at Logs about this intersection between blockchain and ADR in law as well as a whole. And there's a link here. It's also added to the description of this video. And we also co-authored an article about decentralized justice, also with Bankless, and the link is also added to the description of this video. So the challenges and next steps. The main challenge that we found here is that the ADR industry in Brazil is very heterogeneous. We had to explore many different states, talk to many different people in many different roles to understand all the nuances of the industry here. And based on that, the next steps for us are to develop a business model to support a more efficient execution of the Civil Procedure Code in Brazil, especially in the states which don't have an efficient system currently, and adjust our current product to support the new business model. That's it. Thank you for your attention. Please reach out if you have any questions. Thank you.